Live from the European Parliament in Strasbourg, this is Raw Politics. Thank you for joining us tonight, and this is what we have coming up for you. Desperate times. Is Theresa May planning a last-minute trip to Strasbourg before a critical week of Commons votes? Culture wars as Poland's ruling party targets LGBTQ issues. We ask, will identity politics drive the EU elections? Access denied. The German government hits back at Turkey for revoking its journalists' press accreditation. Pasta politics. An Italian mayor lashes out at tourists demanding spaghetti bolognese. And horse whisperer Vladimir Putin loses control in this horseback photo op. All right, it doesn't get much more last minute than this. According to Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister Theresa May is planning to come here to Strasbourg in a desperate attempt to win concessions from the EU on the eve of a series of critical votes. Now, Downing Street has not confirmed the visit, saying that only there are no confirmed plans. But if true, it would be May's last throw of the dice to avoid humiliation tomorrow on her meaningful Brexit vote. And here is Simon Coveney from earlier today.
Many had hoped that we would have clarity at this stage, particularly in advance of a vote tomorrow. We don't yet. The British Prime Minister is travelling to Strasbourg this evening, I understand, to try to finalise an agreement, if that's possible, to be able to put that to a meaningful vote in Westminster tomorrow.
That was the Irish Prime Minister there. And with just hours to go, where on earth does that leave Brexit? Aren't we all asking that question? Well, all day, European leaders and one former British Prime Minister have been weighing in on the last-ditch attempts by Theresa May. Let's take a look.
Well, I support the Prime Minister, and I think she's doing the right thing, seeking a partnership deal with the European Union. That's the right approach. The reason I don't give lots of interviews and answer lots of questions about this is her job is hard enough already without her immediate predecessor giving a running commentary, so she has my support and I wish her well.
We are committed to ratifying this deal before the 29th of March. It is now for the House of Commons to take an important set of decisions this week.
No one in Europe is thinking what I believe some people in the United Kingdom are bothering about, that they are willing to keep the United Kingdom in something of a union against the will of the British Parliament or the people. So many of the problems are something in the mind of people, but not in the reality.
All right, and joining us today in the studio, we have Hans-Olaf Henkel. He's a German MEP who sits with the European Conservatives and Reformists group here in Parliament. And also with us, Philippe Lamberts. He's a Belgian MEP who sits with the Greens EFA group. All right, thank you for joining us tonight, this evening. Hans-Olaf, you were talking before the show, and you asked a really good question. What is Theresa May doing here? If confirmed, this is not confirmed, but if she were to come to Strasbourg, what will be the point?
Well, I guess then she probably meets Juncker and Barnier and tries to come up with the idea that she can then sell tomorrow to the House of Commons. But really, she should have gone to Dublin, because any change to the backstop agreement must be approved by Dublin first and only then by the European Union.
I mean, Philippe, do you think that there is a point to all of this exercise now? Do you think this was part of her strategy at all, or is this a genuine attempt to get something from the European Union to bring back home?
Well, not sure that this makes a lot of sense to me. There's some people who will never be satisfied, because actually what they want is to get rid of the backstop. Actually, they hate the Good Friday Agreement and the constraints it creates and it puts on the United Kingdom, who willingly entered this peace agreement 20 years ago. And this creates constraints, and indeed you can't have the Brexit that they promised because of the Good Friday Agreement. And they don't want to recognize it. Therefore, what they do is blame the European Union not to have to recognize that basically their promises were void. And that is where we are. So I think that Theresa May is quite reasonable, but a lot of people within the Tory party are not, and that's fact of life. So the only thing that would satisfy them is for the European Union to open a 500-kilometer plus backdoor into its single market with no controls, So that would obviate the need for a backstop, but that would ruin the single market, and they cannot expect us to do that.
But why not? Once and for all?
Why not?
Yes.
You must be
because
kidding.
No, no, once
I mean, the
and for
single
all,
market
if
is
they
a cornerstone. It's the foundation of the European Union. Are you serious saying that we should just dump it because of some crazy British politicians? No, absolutely not.
And so when they say that it is, okay, Hans-Olav, because when they say that the EU is inflexible, what do you say to that?
Well, what is ignored in this whole discussion is that the EU itself is also to blame for the Brexit in the first place. I mean, Britain was joining the European Union on the basis of the Lisbon Treaty, and that Lisbon Treaty is calling for decentralization, for subsidiarity, for competitiveness, and not for harmonization, centralization, and the opposite. So, but be it as it may, we are where we are. My view would be if she comes to Strasbourg, then maybe the people here in Strasbourg should turn the table and should say, what can we do to help you asking for a second referendum? Because Brexit is bad. It's a lose-lose situation for both Britain, not only for the European Union.
So what can the EU do? Is there room for maneuver? And you know, Philippe, when you did say that a credible plan for holding a people's vote on the final deal, it must accompany any request for an extension. You said that quite recently.
What I said is that, well, if the British government comes with a request for extension, it must be because they have a game plan. And we want to see that game plan.
Necessarily
Extra time just to think about it a bit more won't help, because the cards have been laying on the table ever since the joint declaration of December 2017. So December 2017, March 2018, sorry, I'm confused now. We have had 15 months to think about the cards that are on the table. So 2 extra months won't solve it. So if they require more time to let a democratic process run its course, fine, we can organize that. Don't forget, though, that if the extra time goes beyond the European election, the United Kingdom will be legally bound to organize the European elections, because as long as they are not gone, they are a member. If they are a member, they have to organize the elections.
Well, that's one good reason to give them the time, even without a game plan.
Even beyond the European elections?
Yes, yes. Look, I think we should do everything possible to avoid Brexit. Full stop. Everything.
But as Philippe was saying...
yeah, well then, if they are forced to come up with the next elections, the more time there is, the more Brits will regret Brexit.
I agree.
So I think we should support Britain and the reasonable people in Britain in our own interest. And we should demonstrate to the British that we need them. We should not only
But what you're saying is that
time,
we can give them time indefinitely. What you're saying is it cannot go beyond the European
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it creates a difficulty. I said if they are still member on election day, they have to organize it. I didn't say they cannot organize it. I say they have to organize it. Does that create a strange situation? Yes, it does. But you know, we don't know the conclusion. And I will agree with my colleague that actually Brexit is a lose-lose game. And indeed, if people want to reconsider, we should not be the ones, the European Union, the EU27, to slam the door shut.
Right.
I've been very vocal saying how much added value I see in the membership of the UK. Frankly speaking, sometimes, Mr. Henkel, I found myself on the side of London against Paris and Berlin on financial regulation.
Which you find very strange.
No. I think that there's a lot of professionalism and there's a lot to the Anglo-Saxon culture that I really appreciate. I mean, look at the Brits in the European Parliament. Look at the Brits in the institutions. They are committed. They are working hard, and they are demonstrating a commitment to the European Union that you do not always find in other nationalities. So don't just discount the United Kingdom.
All right. On that note, okay, let's move on for a little bit now, because, you know, as you mentioned there isn't one, but potentially 3 votes this week in the British Parliament. And if you're confused as how this might all play out over the next 3 days, well, we put together a little brief explainer for you. Let's have a look.
Now, I've been clear throughout the process that my aim is to bring the country back together.
It will be déjà vu for the British Prime Minister and MPs in Westminster tomorrow as they come together here to once again vote on Theresa May's plan for Brexit leaving the EU. And as well as a lot of this. An outcome on the country's immediate future is expected. If the vote passes, the UK will leave the EU with the deal and an orderly exit on the 29th of March. If it fails, they will be called back on Wednesday to vote on a no-deal Brexit. If that's also rejected, they'll vote again on Thursday to delay Brexit and extend Article 50, which the EU would have to approve at a summit later this month. All right, joining us now from London is our political editor, Darren McCaffrey. Darren, so we're just hours away from Theresa May's long-promised Brexit vote. We're in for a long week this week. Is it shaping up to be another humiliating defeat for the Prime Minister?
Well, at the moment, you'd have to suggest, yes, it is. There is much speculation that we could see a defeat not terribly dissimilar from that historic one that the Prime Minister faced back in January when she lost by some 230 votes on her withdrawal agreement. And that is why there's been much speculation, it must be said, over the last couple of days here in the UK that Theresa May well not hold a meaningful vote tomorrow, with the inevitability that she would lose it. Now, it must be said that Downing Street are distancing themselves from that suggestion. It is believed that many Conservative MPs and indeed MPs across the House of Commons would not be happy if the Prime Minister was to do that, to try and kick the can further down the road again, given the fact that there are only 18 days until the UK is due to leave the EU, Tessa. But yes, it is looking likely to be another very difficult and humiliating week, because if she does lose that tomorrow, and of course it does depend on whether she manages to get any significant progress on this Irish backstop, those legal guarantees that the UK government have been seeking for the last couple of weeks or so. And we may well see her go to Strasbourg tonight, but as you suggested at the top of the programme, that has not been confirmed by Downing Street. So much as things are very fluid at the moment, that it is clear that no decision, I think, has been made thus far on whether the Prime Minister will do that or not. But given the fact that she faces that defeat, given the fact that the UK Parliament on Wednesday may vote to take no deal off the table, something she has argued should not happen, and potentially also ask for an extension of Article 50. Many are suggesting that she is no longer in control of this process, and that is why you're hearing from Conservative MPs, even some within her cabinet, suggesting that she may not be the best person to lead the Conservative Party, to lead the Brexit process and the country, and that maybe she should step aside.
Darren, what about, we have 3 votes. At the end of it on Thursday, what if the answer is still a no? I mean, there's a lot of analysis on what that would actually mean. Are we going to be going back to square one again? Is that even a possibility?
It is a possibility. So if Theresa May's withdrawal deal is rejected again tomorrow, as I say, which at the moment you have to say is looking likely, where does that leave the Prime Minister? Well, Downing Street may well suggest that it may take another heave, a third go to get this over the line, and that significant progress could be made at the EU Council meeting, which is due to take place at the end of next week. That will be a week to go until Brexit is due to happen, and that progress could be made there, and that might convince MPs and Brexiteers to back a deal in the end. But I think what is looking like more likely at the moment, Tessa, is that simply we will see an extension to this process, that the UK Parliament will vote for an extension to Article 50. And that is when we kick the football back to Strasbourg and to Brussels and to what the EU thinks. Because up until now, while people and politicians have seemed relatively open to an extension to Article 50, the mood seems to have changed slightly in the last couple of weeks or so, with people suggesting what is the point of an extension of Article 50 if it's going to be negotiations over the same old arguments. So it is incredibly difficult to predict what's going to happen. This week may well present at least some answers to those questions and indeed threaten some political careers. But at the moment it looks like it is going to be, and we say this often, but it is going to be another crucial Brexit week.
Indeed, Darren. And what is the point? That is a very good question. All right, joining us for this panel, Stephen Wolfe. He's a British independent MEP with the UK's Brexit Party. Stephen, when you joined us today, you said earlier there is confirmation, and you got confirmation that Theresa May will be coming to Brussels?
Yeah, I'm just being informed that there is confirmation that Theresa May is to come to try and see Juncker here in Strasbourg, once again to try and pitch her changing ideas of whatever this deal may be the backstop, the kind of idea that she can change something. But the reality is it's humiliating.
Yeah, I repeat the question, what is the point?
I've talked to people here already. It's a humiliation for her. It's a humiliation for our country. It's like a nuisance caller, continually calling the European Union for a change of view that they don't need to give. They have no reason to give. They already have whatever they need in these negotiations. And at this point in time, all they have to do is keep heaping embarrassment on this government and our nation to set a precedent for other countries that they can never leave, to tell the world that if we can humiliate the 5th largest country in the world in economic terms, what's it like with our trade deals with China?
Surely that's not what's on her mind. Surely for her coming here, for her there is a point, there is a strategy for why she's here. Maybe that was a plan all along.
Well, the strategy could be, as some will say, that they wanted to drag this out because she was never a believer in Brexit. She always wanted to find a way that we could have Brino, Brexit in name only, remaining in the customs union, remaining in the single market.
Well, that is a strategy.
Of course it's a strategy, and it's a very successful strategy if that's the way. But what she is doing is sowing the seeds of deep discord in our country, hatred between classes, massive anger between people who will look at the political classes and says, you abused our trust, you abused our votes, and what are we going to do in the next elections?
Is that how it's being viewed here? Do you see this as a humiliation for Theresa May to come here to see if anything can change? Because she is facing humiliation in her parliaments as well.
Well, it looks like it. On the other hand, let's also not forget that part of the blame is to be found in Brussels or now in Strasbourg. Because the reason for Brexit, in my view, is that Britain sort of joined a football club and Brussels decided to play hockey. So they didn't abide by their own rules like subsidiarity, decentralization, less bureaucracy and things like this. So now the question is, what are we doing now? And my proposal to the people here in Strasbourg, whom she is going to meet, is they should change the strategy and behind closed doors and should say, look, what can we do to help you? And of course, this will be the extension. And then let's go for a second vote. That, in my opinion, is absolutely necessary because, as my colleague here rightfully said, there is a lot of friction and hatred. The parliament is unable to make a decision. So bring it back to the people.
You wouldn't
and
be
let
happy
the
with that.
people
All right, very quick
decide. He
response.
will not be happy, but I think it is in my view.
Very quick response.
But what would the vote be on? Would the vote be on staying in the European Union, which is what some people want? Would it be Brino, which is Theresa May's deal? Or would there be an opportunity for people to say, let's have a no deal, which is where the polls are saying most people are now looking?
Yes, I think you are right. They should be asked these 3 alternatives. Theresa's deal, no deal, or staying.
We'll come back to this discussion because first let's go to our correspondent Shona, because if and when Theresa May does show up, now we confirm that she is coming up to Strasbourg. What kind of reception can she actually expect from MEPs? Our correspondent Shona Murray has been looking into that. She's gauging the mood here in Strasbourg. So Shona, what have you been hearing? Who have you been talking to?
Indeed, Tessa. Well, as we know, it's only just been confirmed that Theresa May will come to Strasbourg tonight, where she'll meet face-to-face with President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker. People were sceptical as to whether she could come because, as we heard from Philippe Lambert, the Belgian MEP, you know, people really thought that they couldn't, the UK and the EU weren't going to get together a deal which would allow the UK change its position when it comes to getting the withdrawal agreement over the line. I'm joined now by Mairead McGuinness, who's first Vice President of the European Parliament and Irish MEP. Mairead, are you surprised that Theresa May is coming now? Because obviously she wouldn't be coming unless there was something down the line, some sort of deal in the offing.
Well, I've been surprised by nothing around Brexit because it's been quite a traumatic process. I think that the fact that there's now confirmation she's coming might suggest that there is some developments, because she'd hardly travel if there were not. On the other hand, what those developments are, because if you look at what the UK are looking for and what Europe has steadfastly said, then there is very little middle ground there. There is a willingness from the EU side to provide reassurances, legal reassurances to the United Kingdom. Will that be enough for the Prime Minister to think that she will get the numbers behind this deal? So there's a lot of travelling and arithmetic going on around the possibilities of tonight crunching anything.
Yeah, and of course, those reports about Theresa May, you know, they've been sort of in the offing all day. day today. They're not fully confirmed, but you have heard that from the European Parliament side that they're actually preparing for this visit.
Well, as these things emerge, I've heard it because I was doing a live interview with another channel, and it came in through the earpiece that in fact she is definitely coming here, which was news to all of us, because while it was speculated on in the early hours of today, it is now being confirmed. But I'm not hearing from our side, from the European side, as to what the developments might be to allow the Prime Minister make this journey. And there's also some speculation about what might be voted on tomorrow. So there is the deal that's on the table. Perhaps there is something else that might be voted on, but in addition there is talk about a fantasy deal. So in other words, what the UK might like being put to the vote, which is very different than what Europe might be prepared to offer,
but would
which
she risk
complicates
to be
it.
humiliated if she were to come all the way to Strasbourg unscheduled and then to be rejected by Jean-Claude Juncker once again? I mean, that's a real risk for her, considering her own premiership is being questioned at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's a key point here about her own position as Prime Minister. Now she's been quite steadfast, and she has lived through some horrific votes and reactions to same, so she's quite determined, I think, to hang on. In terms of humiliation, I think we have to move beyond those concerns, because this is far more serious than any of our egos. This is about the people of the United Kingdom and the rest of Europe. And the idea that we would accidentally slip into a no deal, in my view, would be horrific and horrendous. And whatever we have to do to resolve this needs to be done within our own red lines, with the UK hoping to move out of its fixed position.
That's Mairead McGuinness. So Mairead, Tessa, just to update you, has heard from her side of the European Parliament there are preparations underway for Theresa May's visit, but again, you know, we'll need to get that full confirmation from 10 Downing Street. Back to you.
Indeed, we do. All right. As the clock has ticked towards the no-deal deadline, there has been growing anger from UK MPs against what they see as the EU's stubbornness, and the language has become more and more inflammatory. All right, now the former UK Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, he wrote in today's Telegraph, quote, "If never has that EU contempt been clearer than today as we struggle to leave. Our negotiators have done their best to explain UK democratic and constitutional objections to the Irish backstop, but they might as well have been talking to the wall." All right, so those are strong words there from Boris Johnson. And it has been a big surprise. And I think this echoes what you were saying earlier.
Yes.
But the words that he used, EU contempt, is that correct, though?
I think there has been an element of contempt. I think you've seen it in the chamber in the last two Strasbourg sessions, where numbers of MEPs have expressed...
Because they are tired.
Well, maybe they're tired, but if you're supposed to be responsible members of the European Parliament seeking to try and achieve a deal...
Because they don't know what the UK wants.
As we have here, we have someone here who is, if he was in those negotiating scenarios, would actually be talking to on a normal level, but not here in this Parliament. And what you're going to see is the same sort of aggression that's occurring in our own Parliament. I've been on here before where I've said you have Remainer MPs and Leaver MPs now verbally jousting with each other, not only in Parliament but outside of it. I've seen it on the television studios. This anger now is permeating throughout the whole of our society, and it's here in the European Parliament too.
Do you agree, Hans?
Well, I agree with that because I have, as you know, I'm a Remainer.
All right.
And I think Brexit is terrible for Britain, and it is even worse for the European Union, because Britain leaving means that the last country with common sense is leaving the European Union, quite frankly. So that's why I think we should do everything to keep them here. But I've noticed from my discussions with Remainers in London that the way Verhofstadt and Barnier has treated Theresa May and many other people in Britain has made even Remainers now becoming Brexiteers. Absolutely. Because they said, look, they have treated us so badly, I'm fed up.
They were just playing tough. You don't think they were just playing tough so that they get...
Yeah, well, yes, and Verhofstadt here is, in my view, and he is sort of the symbol for those people who drove Britain out of the European Union. And this guy and his entourage has a lot of responsibility for this disaster.
On that. All right, we'll leave it on that for now, because we have a lot more coming up for you on Raw Politics. Culture wars, why Poland's Law and Justice Party is firing up its right-wing base over LGBTQ issues. Plus, we also have one Italian mayor's campaign to stop tourists from ordering spaghetti bolognese. Don't go away. All right, welcome back to Raw Politics. From Germany to Poland and even back in Brussels, there are signs that identity politics will play a bigger than ever role in the European Parliament elections coming in May. Now let's take a look at tonight's ballot buzz. It was last week. France's Emmanuel Macron set out his grand vision for Europe. Now, not to be outdone, Angela Merkel's anointed successor, Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, is setting out her roadmap for the bloc. And with migration firmly on the agenda in Germany, she's joined Emmanuel Macron's call for secure external borders, adding that Europe needs a border police force. Meanwhile, the man bidding to be the next Commission President, EPP lead candidate Manfred Weber, has announced that half of his team of commissioners would be women. Taking to Twitter, he praised women's flair for compromise. And in Poland, a fight over gay rights after the mayor of Warsaw signed a declaration to protect LGBT+ rights, including the introduction of sex and tolerance education into the city's schools. The ruling Law and Justice Party came out fighting this weekend. Speaking to party faithful, leader Jaroslaw Kaczynski branded his rival's agenda an attack on children. From migration to gender and gay rights, it seems identity politics is firmly on the agenda for this year's European Parliament elections. And joining me to discuss, among other things, identity politics as part of our election coverage here on Raw Politics, we have Elmar Brok. He is a German MEP from the European People's Party, as well as Linnea Engström. She's a Swedish MEP from the Greens EFA group. All right, we were talking about identity politics there. One could argue that it's always been a part of politics. You know, people relate to something that they identify with. But why does it seem much more important in these elections, the upcoming European parliamentary elections, and the stakes seem higher? Elmar.
Look, I think identity is always a question of politics. I'm not sure that this is more important than in other elections. It's always the identity which people have to recognize, whether politicians meet their identity. That is always a secret of communication between politicians and citizens.
You don't find populists are jumping on issues that magnify identity politics in order to get votes?
To be right-wing, against migrants,
there you go,
against neighbors, is that identity policy? It is the opposite of identity. The opposite of identity, I think. And therefore, I believe identity is that a nation, a region, groups of ethnic people have their own identity, which in a plural society have all their rights to live and have the possibilities to say what they want, and they agree on that, what they want. And this, I think, is the question. And the definition of identity should not be given by the right-wing people.
Because we even have...
They destroy identity.
What do you think about that? Because...
No, I think that's very, very adequately put. I mean, this is really about empathy, about human rights. I don't know why we lack empathy in the Union today. I get horrified when I see in the middle of Europe, Polish, on that level, on the highest political level, people are questioning LGBT rights. I mean, these are our common values. These are the values that we built this union on. So I don't know why we lack empathy in this
But
sense.
it is being used as a basis for drawing battle lines in the elections.
We don't have to like each other's religion, or I don't have to like your lifestyle or your sexuality, but I have to defend every human being equal rights. I mean, that's what it's really about, and that's what we built our union on. And because of very, very good reasons, because of people challenging every single human value, equal value. So I think it's, I'm surprised, and I think we have to fight against it fiercely.
We should not allow the right-wing people to identify what identity is.
Exactly.
It's not their job.
So
it's the job of everyone.
How do you stop people from identifying with identity politics, as you say?
They don't accept that. They have no right to do so. Everyone has the right to look for his identity. But please do not leave the definition of identity to the right-wing people.
What? I think they're using like contempt and sort of fear-mongering to build this kind of stereotyping. I mean, let's face it, we are human beings. We have a tendency of stereotyping the other. But that's just a very simple way of, I think we have to challenge it with facts, always with facts, by standing with our human rights, and always saying that this is our union. There is no place for racism. There is no place for challenging LGBT rights or women's rights or all of that.
Yeah, on women's rights, like Manfred Weber, he was now talking about gender parity and highlighting this issue. Is that a strategy, like to get votes, or why? Why would he be doing that?
Look, we have changed in our society, and everyone has to adapt to. But everyone has also the right to have different opinions on that. I think that is not these rights are going in the same direction. Because of religious reasons, I might have another opinion than others to that question. Yeah. But it does not mean on one side that you live after such standards or what you should allow in a plural society. There's two different laws. I do not like, for example, homosexual marriages as a Catholic, but I would like to allow it in every state, because there is no right in a modern state to discriminate.
Exactly.
That is my own opinion. I have to divide it between that.
But with gender parity, I think I saw that pledge that he did on gender parity, and I think that's very good. I think women's vote will make a huge difference in this election, and just because of right-wing populism.
Is he appealing to his base?
I hope he does. I hope we have more women voting in the European election, because usually the voter turnout is quite low in most member states. So if we have a higher percentage of women going to the polls, that might make a severe difference.
There's something, and one other thing I wanted to touch, which we mentioned in that ballot buzz. It's AKK in Germany. She's trying to position herself, it seems, to create her own identity and create her own image separate from Angela Merkel or Emmanuel Macron. Is she doing a good job?
No, she does, but she has other background. She's a more to southern, western Germany Catholic person, and Angela Merkel is the eastern, northern German Protestant.
Okay.
This is totally different.
What is the difference? So what can we expect from someone like AKK?
AKK is classic Christian democratic policy in Germany, like Helmut Kohl. That's another story. And it's a nice thing to have this differentiation. I love it that we have this differentiation in our party. And that is, I think it's a very good development, but in the principles we agree to.
Right.
In all the principle, Mrs. Merkel and Mrs. Kramp-Karrenbauer agree each other, and that is a good thing. But if there's a differentiation, it's a third question, it's a fine way to do so.
And actually, Miss Kramp-Karrenbauer, she was also trying to push back against Macron. Agree, but push back a little bit as well. So what will happen to the German?
I discussed it with her also today. Look, when Mr. Macron made the proposals, when someone makes a proposal, you have not to agree from the next day on every detail of it.
Clear.
But if you read it well in both directions, it goes in the same direction. But there's a differentiation, but she makes some extra proposals. He has not yet agreed to. That is discussion.
And they're both laying out their visions for Europe, essentially. All right. Now, a politician launching a fight against fake news. Well, you think you've heard this one before, but no, you probably have not. Let's take a look. Welcome to Bologna, the northern Italian city famous for its culture and cuisine. But if you're thinking about sitting down in one of the city's restaurants and ordering some spaghetti bolognese, you might have the mayor on your back, because Virginio Merola is on a mission to stop hungry tourists from thinking that Bologna is the birthplace of spaghetti bolognese. He's taken to Twitter, branding the culinary classic spag bol fake news. Instead, he wants his city to be renowned for the dishes it did invent: tagliatelle, tortellini, and lasagna. One thing's for sure, the association between Bologna and spaghetti bolognese is one which could prove hard to untangle. You really feel strongly about this and the fact that he called it fake news. I mean, what do you think about that?
I just get very hungry. I mean, those dishes that look...
Are Swedish meatballs actually Swedish? I don't know. Are they?
Sorry, what?
Swedish meatballs, I was just thinking.
Of course.
Oh, they are?
That's,
okay.
That's the best.
I mean, what's interesting is that this now fake news is attached to everything, even something like spaghetti bolognese.
I think I would like to have the problems this mayor has.
Why not?
Yeah.
And makes a joke about it. But I love spaghetti bolognese.
Just don't
from
order
time
it
to
in
time.
Bologna. Just do not do that. All right, coming up on Raw Politics, rising tensions. Germany tightens its travel advisory for Turkey as journalists have their press accreditation revoked. Don't go away. Welcome back. Now, the German government has warned its citizens about traveling to Turkey, saying that they could be arrested for expressing opinions that are tolerated at home. Now, it changed their travel advice after the Turkish government expelled 3 journalists without giving a reason. The ZDF television journalist Jörg Brasse is one of those journalists, and he and his colleague left Istanbul this weekend and arrived home in Germany last night. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about the Turkish government.
I think this decision is wrong. It's causing more damage for Turkey than it does for us or for ZDF or any other media. The Turkish government managed to more or less silence national media. And they're now trying to do it with international media, and we should not submit to that.
All right, let's have a look at that new travel advice given out by the German Foreign Ministry. So let's take a look at what it says. It says it cannot be ruled out that the Turkish government will take further measures against representatives of the German media and civil society institutions. So that was the message of the travel advisory given out by the German government. All right, here with us to talk about this is Ana Miranda. She's a Spanish MEP with the Greens EFA group, and Stephen Wolf, a British MEP, independent MEP here at the Parliament. All right, what is fueling this, if we can use the word aggression or more aggressive tone by Turkey?
For us, it's an erosion of the rule of law. It's a lack of freedoms, and a lack of the freedom of speech. And at the moment, also a persecution to all the different ideas of different to Erdogan. Academics, journalists, politicians, women. We have seen last 8 March how was repressed the demonstration of women there. And we have also a big erosion of the rule of law. It's for that we are very worried.
Why do you think he's feeling, why do you think Erdogan is maybe being a little less careful when it comes to going against what the EU sees as against its values?
Because he has power. First of all, with the European Union, he has power of control of whether he can open the doors and allow millions of Syrians and other migrants that are currently resting in his country, and he can allow them to flood Europe, and that's what he would do, and he's threatened to do that, and we begged him not to by giving him 6 billion euros. He also has power because he knows that in northern Syria he's worked with the Americans to carve out a part of Syria for himself, lots of the olive groves, parts of the gas, parts of the opportunities that are up there, and he controls that area. So he knows also that by aligning himself perhaps with Russia, being less aggressive as the West, he has power and influence over Europe, the United States. So he is daring everybody to say, come and tell me what to do, because this is what I will do if you do.
I mean, to that point, because Anna, you're saying, yes, we're very worried about the erosion of rule of law, but as Stephen is pointing out, it seems like the EU's hands are tied. What can you do? You need Turkey for dealing with terrorism, dealing with the migration. So what is the EU to do?
No, the problem is the persecution and the erosion of the rule of law. I have here an important document because it's the letter that has sent Mr. Demirtas, the leader of the HDP, to me, because I was there in December with the family, with the lawyer. He's in the jail now with other political prisoners, and the European Human Court has a decision saying that it's not a trial, a fair trial. He's in prison, and he said an important text. I think is the point for the European Union. He say we all have to pursue a more patient and committed struggle to uphold democracy and human rights at both national and global levels. And he's asking us to freeze the negotiation, not to cancel or to suspend the negotiations. So the opinion of my group is to freeze the negotiations, to struggle in the defense of democracy, because Erdogan at the moment is a dictatorship.
Would that help? Would freezing the accession talks help? I mean, it seems like Turkey's not even that interested anymore in being a part of the European Union.
Well, look, there's an element within the Turkish elite that wants to be part of the European Union. They want to get hands on the money and the power that's influenced that. But there's another part that's saying, look, you've got to look at the changing fabric of our world. China is closest to us. The Middle East is closer to us. Russia is closer to us. And perhaps it's time for us, as Turkey, as a nation with a huge population, a very strong army, a really big military, to say that we could influence what goes on in the world. And I think that has more to do with this. He's saying, I am an equal to you. I'm not a supplicant to the European Union anymore. I don't necessarily need the European Union. You need me more than I need you. And therefore, I will continue to have the power in my country to make my country as strong as possible.
So basically what the EU can do is just talk, just warn Turkey, just say. So, I mean, yes, you can freeze accession talks, but what does that actually achieve?
Also protect the human rights, because the symbol is the Kurdish symbol, is the defense of human rights of the middle part of the country, the Kurdistan. And we have a lot of Kurdish and Turkish people living in Europe. So these people in the diaspora can influence also in the vote. They have local elections soon. And maybe Erdogan needs also a chance inside to influence also in the European Union. And in the European Union, we need to change all our dependent view with Turkey. I agree with him. Paying to stop the migrants is not a solution.
Yeah, and why do you think Germany is taking a harder line, it seems like, now in this? Is it because of the kind of influence that Erdogan does have on the Turkish diaspora?
Of course he has influence on the Turkish diaspora. They are funding mosques throughout the European Union. They are helping establish what he regards as Muslim political parties, particularly those in Holland. He feels that he can use through money, his influence, to stretch into the politics of the European Union as well, which he thinks is perfectly legitimate for him to strengthen his own country.
I think this is really interesting for the European Union, enlargement being a part of, the European project. And here we have countries like Turkey where this is, being questioned fundamentally. I think, we'll leave that conversation there in the meantime. But for now, we have a lot more coming up for you on Raw Politics. Let's go to Westminster, actually, a live shot. Let's look at what's happening outside. It's going to be a very busy week in the UK as Theresa May prepares for 3 crucial votes potentially this week. And we will be talking to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, in just a moment. Welcome back to Raw Politics. Now, this week is going to be a very busy week for Theresa May as she prepares to again face a vote in the House of Commons, 3 potentially on her Brexit plan. It's going to be a complicated one, whether or not her deal will get through, whether or not no deal will be taken off the table, or an extension will be asked from the European Union. And there have been talk earlier, even before we started the show, that she was coming to Brussels, and in fact, that may be coming to Strasbourg, that is, and in fact, that may be the case. Let's go live now to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who is in London. Darren, so what's the latest on Theresa May coming to Strasbourg?
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be wheels up imminently, with Theresa May travelling to Strasbourg to meet with Michel Barnier and Jean-Claude Juncker. Be it no doubt, it is quite significant, given the fact that I don't think Theresa May would risk going to Strasbourg unless she had something up her sleeve, unless potentially the Attorney General, the UK Attorney General, Geoffrey Cox, was going to change his legal advice when it comes to this issue of the Irish backstop and the border. Will it be enough, though? That is the key question for those MPs, many hundreds of them, including many Conservatives who voted against her deal, only just over a month ago, enough to get this over the line, this withdrawal agreement over the line. Well, let's bring in one of those MPs, a May loyalist at one stage, but someone who voted against her deal, Nigel Evans. He's a Conservative MP. Nigel, what's first of all your impression of what Theresa May is going to get out of this meeting in Strasbourg tonight? Are you hopeful?
Well, funny enough, somebody, journalist texted me and said, what has she got? And I responded, resilience. And that is exactly what she's got. Now, for us, and for a lot of my colleagues, she has to bring something back. it would be humiliating to fly all the way to Strasbourg if she then comes back with exactly the same deal, or what Michel Barnier the other day was offering, which was nothing.
So what are you looking for? Spell out, what are you looking for?
It's got to be a solution to the backstop problem. At the moment, we can unilaterally leave the European Union, but once we've signed this withdrawal agreement, under her deal we can't, and we have to allow the European Union after they've tried their best endeavours, a phrase I've not heard since I was in the Scouts. So that's not good enough. We have to have something that has legal clarity, and if she's able to bring that back tomorrow, then I think she stands a very good chance of getting it through the House. I'll tell you is that if the Prime Minister brings forward the same deal that she brought back earlier on, then it's not going to pass. It will not fly. But if we get the legal clarity so that we know that we are able to unilaterally leave the European Union, if we believe that they're just dragging out the backstop, then I think she stands a very strong chance of getting it through.
And the question, though, is if she doesn't come back with enough, she'll come back with something, but if it's not enough, does that mean then she needs to consider her position as Prime Minister? Has she run out of road? Has she kicked the can too much down the road?
Well, it's a huge question, and I know other members of my party are already saying that if she fails to bring forward something that the House passes, then her position is untenable. All I will say is this, is that she became Prime Minister with the promise of delivering Brexit. If she fails to deliver Brexit, then I think people will question her position as Prime Minister.
Nigel Evans, thank you very much indeed. There you go, a Conservative MP suggesting that Theresa may well have to question her position if she fails to get significant progress on this backstop. Very, very difficult times for Theresa May, Tessa. Very fluid politics here at Westminster. Anything could actually really happen this week.
Anything can happen indeed. Darren McCaffrey there, thank you very much. All right, and joining us to talk about this is our correspondent Shona Murray, and still with us is Stephen Wolfe, an independent British MEP. And we do have reports that touchdown wheels down for Theresa May will be 9 p.m. CET, so we're looking forward to that. Now, much like the surprise visit, does she have something up her sleeve? Are we going to be surprised?
I don't think we're going to be massively surprised. What Geoffrey Cox has supposedly done is working on some sort of legal agreement that they're trying to work on whether the text actually works. Last night they said it didn't work. They're going back to it. Maybe that's the opportunity. What we're trying to wonder out is what's happened over the past week. We had Dominic Grieve go and see Macron. We've had Tony Blair go and see Macron. They've all talked about Brexit. The argument is that she could lose by 150 again this week. So is she preparing the ground for an extension of Article 50, keeping us here in the European Union, so that she can then try and continue the negotiations?
That, or is there something that's going to change with the Irish backstop? You were talking about that with Mary McGuinness.
Anything dramatically can change, in terms of what the backstop has to be. Diminishing the backstop is the priority, not diminishing the backstop is the priority for the EU, and diminishing it is the priority for Brexiteers. And as we just heard there can't be a unilateral withdrawal from the backstop unless it's the UK part of it, but not the Northern Ireland part. It does seem irreconcilable still.
And just bringing into the conversation, because there are reports that she will be giving a statement at 10 p.m. CET. What is she going to say?
Well, I can say that she will probably say, I'm here today to continue the further negotiations, to get the best deal for Britain. I'm working with our European partners. I'm sure that we are going to do that, because we have heard this again and again and again ad nauseum. The embarrassment of her coming here at this time of night with such a late stage before the vote tomorrow says that she is scared. Her team are scared that she will be embarrassed in Parliament and leave us with the opportunity
but coming to Strasbourg is a bigger risk for humiliation as well.
Absolutely.
Well, there you go.
I think that's the risk that they're taking. They're scared.
That speech, definitely something we will be looking out for tonight, and what she's going to say. Maybe Stephen has actually said it all already. All right,
I'll charge
tonight's raw moment, it comes from Russia, where President Vladimir Putin, a man famous for his wilderness photo shoots, had a bit of trouble taming an unruly horse. Let's take a look. disappointed.
than that.
But it is rare to see him not in full control, wouldn't you say?
I don't think that we would have been able to see that video if he had fallen off. I think that footage would have been destroyed, let's face it.
I'm not sure they'd ever allowed us to have that at all.
I love your reaction, like, oh, big disappointment. All right, thank you very much for watching us tonight. If you always like to your views, you look for us on social media, use the hashtag #RawPolitics. We're always waiting for all of your comments. And also follow Euronews on Twitter and on Facebook. All right, have a good evening. Goodbye.